Okay, sorry for the massive delay there, folks. I've been rather busy this past month, and I've also had the Switch and Zelda Breath of the Wild eating up a lot of my time as an early birthday present from my fiancée, Eve. Thank you very much, sweetheart. I am loving the game so far and plan to do a review of it soon. But now on to the main event. Bayonetta, originally released in 2010 for the Xbox 360 and PS3, while it doesn't have any particularly interesting development history, it did mark the return of a wonderful video game director, Hideki Kamiya.
Ah yes, Hideki Kamiya, a name that may not be quite as big as someone like Shigeru Miyamoto or Hideo Kojima, but when you hear this guy's name, he usually brings great games along with him. Former employed by Capcom and now part of Platinum Games, where his earlier work ranges from Resident Evil 1 and 2, Beautiful Joe, and the original Devil May Cry. I'll be dedicating a marathon to the Devil May Cry series after this one for winning second place in my 500 subscriber vote, so look forward to that. In fact, Devil May Cry 4 was actually used as a reference for Bayonetta's gameplay. The version of the game we'll be looking at is the Wii U port that was released in 2014 in conjunction with Bayonetta 2, and it looks and plays exactly the same as the 360 version, so you don't need to worry about getting a half-assed port. The PS3 version, on the other hand, has been given infamously poor reception due to its numerous frame rate drops, blurry textures, and long load times, and even Platinum has considered this port to be their biggest failure. The Xbox 360 version is the cheaper and more stable option, but the Wii U version also features exclusive costumes that Bayonetta can wear based on various Nintendo characters, though I really don't like the Princess Peach and Daisy outfits. Seeing Bowser's punches and kicks are pretty cool, but this is trying way too hard to make Bayonetta seem sexy, and these dresses just look awful on her. But the Samus and Link costumes are actually pretty cool. You get the classic arm cannon with a power suit, in addition to being able to switch your visor on and off, while the Link costume changes the currency to rupees and the sword weapon to the Master Sword, while also being able to parry attacks and using the traditional music sting when you open a chest. But anyway, enough of the aesthetics, let's talk about that story. You find out that Bayonetta is an Umbra witch that awakens from a 500-year slumber with no memory of who she is or where she's from. Before Bayonetta's incident, there were two organizations that shared two treasures known as the Eyes of the World to keep the balance between the light and the darkness intact. Followers of the darkness are the Umbra witches, and the followers of light are the Lumen sages. Both of the organizations mysteriously disappeared, so it's up to Bayonetta to find the Eyes of the World, restore the balance, and stop this being called Jubileus, the creator, while also coming across different faces from her past, like Jeanne, another Umbra witch who seems to know her personally well, and Luca, who believes that Bayonetta killed his father years ago. And if I didn't explain the story well enough, don't worry, you've got Enzo here who loves to shout exposition and act like he's Joe Pesci. But the story overall is not very interesting, a few things aren't explained very well, if at all, and character development is an obscure rarity, which doesn't sound like a big deal for a hack and slash game, and it is very tongue-in-cheek about it, but it still isn't entertaining to watch. This is another reason I like using the power suit, because I can use the visor to pretend that Bayonetta's sleeping from boredom during a hefty information dump. The script is also horribly written, nobody talks like normal people, and the performances are at best passable, with the worst portrayed as either wooden in the case of this demon arms dealer named Rodan, or just plain bad in the case of Enzo and this little girl you meet called Cereza. And I swear that 90% of the dialogue in this game is just a lame quip or random reference to other games.
Hey, check this out. What are you buying? Heard that in a game once.
The actresses for Bayonetta and Jeanne are alright, and I'll give them credit for trying to make the awful writing sound somewhat cool, but with lines like these, I don't think anybody can make them sound golden.
Mommy!
Mommy? You're a mom? You?
Come now, Cheshire. Look at me. Do I look like I have any interest in children? Now making them, well, that's another story.
Who talks like that? Well, even though the story and the writing's an absolute joke, the gameplay definitely fares up a bit more. Not flawlessly, but enough to have quite a number of fun moments. Bayonetta is another stylish spectacle fighter where you need to combine punches and kicks to perform dangerous combos against these various races of angels. Some combos require you to use the analog stick in a certain way, while others need you to wait for a second before pressing another button. But in case you want to be more distant from the enemies, then Bayonetta can also shoot guns with excellent firing rate and unlimited ammo, but with incredibly weak bullets, and she can somehow use guns on her feet as well as her hands. But I can already hear the Devil May Cry fans calling this game a ripoff, or in this case for Hideki Kamiya, a rehash. And you know what, in some respect it is very similar to Devil May Cry, but Bayonetta has enough new stuff to give herself an identity. She's way more flexible than Dante or Nero for starters, and if she dodges an enemy attack just before it hits her, then she can activate Witch Time, which very briefly slows down the enemies, allowing you to get hits in more easily. Take as much advantage of the situation as you can when Witch Time is activated, it will save your life. But just like Dante, Bayonetta can also swap different assortments of weapons at any time, so long as you set up the formations you want via the menus. Though really, the sword is no doubt the best weapon to use in this game, since it's very fast and powerful and can break through armor. But aside from that, Bayonetta also has a button to taunt your opponents, just like Dante. Okay, yeah, she's pretty much Dante with tits, complete with taking every opportunity to throw a dumb, witty remark during cutscenes. To Bayonetta's defense, she does have a couple of things that neither Dante nor Nero can do, which is where the torture attacks and climaxes come in. Torture attacks are special moves that can be inflicted once your magic meter below your health is full, and upon pressing both attack buttons near an enemy, you can deal tremendous amounts of damage to them. These are especially great for bigger enemies that have their own health bars. Climaxes occur when you're close to defeating a boss, and pressing the attack buttons will let Bayonetta use her hair to transform into different monsters and finish them off. Yeah, I should mention that a lot of Bayonetta's powers do come from her hair, which is why you keep seeing giant fists and feet appearing above her. And it's even used to make the very suit she wears, so yeah, I hope she brushes it well enough. Anyway, both torture attacks and climaxes require you to mash the hell out of one of the buttons, but if you manage to make the meter full, you'll get a fair amount of halos as a reward, which is this game's currency. Halos can also drop from enemies that you defeat and are sometimes hidden in breakable objects. And you can use them to buy all sorts of techniques, items, equipment, and weapons from Rodon's shop. You know, for a game published by Sega and with all the Easter eggs thrown around, I'm surprised they didn't add the ring noises from Sonic games. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff you can buy is pretty damn expensive, so you're gonna have to do some saving up. My advice, purchase the air dodge and the bat within abilities, especially the bat within ability that still lets you dodge and activate Witch Time the second you get hit. I'd also recommend getting as many witch hearts as you can to permanently increase your health, or find 4 pieces of a witch's heart found in treasure chests or secret spots to do the same thing. Because the enemies and the amount of hell Bayonetta has to go through can be downright obnoxious at times. Some of these guys do not know the meaning of the word mercy. They hit hard, they can trap you in combos, and worst of all, it's definitely possible for them to get a cheap shot at you because as soon as their introductory cutscene ends, they'll start attacking and you only have a second to dodge them. Not to mention that with some enemies and bosses, only dodging specific attacks will activate Witch Time, which is horrendously inconsistent. And this is infuriating if you're trying to get the best rank for each battle. Once a battle ends, you'll be graded on your efforts between stone, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and pure platinum, with some of the fights being in hidden locations and a few of them with different winning conditions. And once you finish the chapter, you'll be graded on your overall performance, where earning a higher rank will give you more bonus halos to spend. But getting pure platinum can for the most part be extremely difficult to get because of the problems with the enemies I mentioned earlier, and the fact that you can't get hit at all to earn it, as well as clearing the enemies fast enough and dealing a lot of combos. And to top it all off, if you die or use an item even once, that's very likely to drop you below a couple of ranks at the end of the chapter, regardless if you did fairly well on each of the fights. And there is nothing worse than doing tremendously on a chapter, only to have that ruined because of an improper QuickTime event that you didn't see coming until it was too late, and having that final rank taken away from you just like that. With these in account, I can imagine getting every single Pure Platinum award being a completionist nightmare. You can always practice during the loading times, which is a neat idea, but nothing can prepare you for the QuickTime events. Oh, but the fun doesn't stop there. Let's add a frustrating motorcycle section with wonky as hell collision detection to go along with it. And why don't we throw the player on a moving missile near the end of the game and let them play Space Harrier for what feels like a freaking eternity and is so easy to mess up? But even with all that said, Bayonetta is not a terrible game. On the contrary, it can be pretty incredible at times. Some of the boss fights in particular are amazing. But it's these little things that make the experience an absolute pain. The ranking system is unbelievably harsh, and the stupid amount of times I got juggled by enemies or bested by a QuickTime event just angered me so much. I am sort of the minority here, as many people are very much in love with this game to the point where they just barely got a sequel. First-time players will be looking at roughly between 10 to 12 hours of playtime, which is not too long but not too short, so you do get a fair amount of meat out of the game. And it encourages replayability anyway so that you can afford more stuff and try to earn all the pure platinum grades. But this is not a game I'll personally come back to after quite some time. Sorry, Bayonetta fans.
but it's still worth a shot if you haven't played it already, and who knows, you may find something great in it that I don't. But we need to move on to the next game anyway, so coming up next is a third-person shooter made by Platinum called Vanquish. I can already see this not being a very long review, but we won't know until then, so I'll see you again soon.